Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar titled Data Center Migration, Planning for the Next Normal. The webinar is hosted by AmCom Solutions, and it will be presented by vXchnge. I'm going to go ahead and click on the next slide to give you a little idea of who AmCom is. There we go. Okay, well, AmCom Solutions is located in the capital of Texas, and we were founded in 2004. We're a leading telecom solutions provider, and we have long-standing partnerships with all the major telecom carriers, and AT&T is our primary alliance partner since 2006. So we are a solution provider with the carriers. And what AmCom does is if your company needs any type of internet or data services or any kind of migration work, data center solutions, you can contact AmCom, and what we do is we do all the legwork. We do the quote, get the best quote for you. We process the orders, do the test and turn-ups, and we do the first bill review. And what we do is simplify and expedite working with the internet providers to accommodate your bandwidth needs. And we are not a reseller, we are not an MSP nor an aggregator. We get paid directly by the carriers, so there's no fee for our services. You are the customer of record with the carrier. Once the service is up and running, we are out of that process. And we never charge for our fees because we're sort of an extension of the carrier sales force. And I'd like to now introduce Evan Olson, who is with vXchnge, and he'll give a little intro about who vXchnge is.
Thank you, Sue. Just by way of introduction, my name is Evan Olson. My responsibilities at vXchnge is to run our resale sales channel. The good news for all that are listening is that I'm not going to be the one that's leading us along this journey of data center migrations. We have one of our industry experts and one of the best in the business, Ross Warrington, to lead us through the topic of data center migration. And prior to turning the mic over to Ross, just a quick backdrop on vXchnge. As Sue gave that great introduction on how AmCom will help facilitate the customer journey along the full breadth and services of carrier services, inclusive of data center. vXchnge is a co-location service provider that focused on the emerging U.S. markets. Currently, we operate in 14 markets through North America and have the privilege to support some of the world's largest, as well as some of the new, emerging brands, as long as, in addition to everything in between. The way that we go about and differentiate ourselves is how we support our clients. And I look at this as, really just centered around, service-based, both through an operational excellence, perspective, along with one of our award-winning, tools, which are all passed along to our customers. And our goal is to make, our clients as successful as possible, which is backed by what our customers say about us through the hundreds of customer accolades as well as testimonials. So that's the brief plug and intro of vXchnge, and I will toss it over to Ross to run through the data center migration journey that we're going to go on today. So Ross, it's balls in your court.
All right, Evan, Susan, thank you both very much, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining our webinar and allowing me the honor to discuss some of the things that we feel are very important as far as successful migration. And I'll share with you that most of these things have been learned through a lot of errors that I've witnessed over the years, and I have a lot of scars and bruises to prove them. But hopefully I'll share with you some things that we found that will make your migration easier, effective, and have the results that you're looking for. The areas that I'm going to be covering today are going to be what we see as common as lack of a project management plan, poor risk assessment, incomplete cost analysis, no upfront conversation about what migrations entail, and a failure to identify applications and equipment needs. These 5 are key areas where we have found that migrations either have stalled or failed because these issues weren't addressed effectively from the very beginning of the project. And that's what we'll be going through today, is how to build your plan, conduct your assessment, complete your analysis, make sure that you've got everybody on target, and then what things you need to look at to make sure that the migration will be a success. Poor risk assessment is one of the biggest areas where we find that a lot of mistakes are made. It is where assumptions are made, or ideas of, we haven't had any problems in the past, this should not be any different. And it will always lead to some sort of an issue or problem that you're not prepared to face. Obviously, you cannot eliminate every risk with a migration, but if you are prepared for that risk, you've analyzed it, you've recognized it, and you're prepared for it, you'll be able to deal with it effectively. And you'll have been able to communicate that risk to the executive teams and customers, so that if something does occur, you have them advised and there's a plan in play that you can resolve the issue. So the first part you want to look at is your data center priorities. What are you trying to do in your migration? What is your purpose accomplishment? To sell your plan, which is what you're going to have to do, you have to look at what are your goals through this migration and what do you need to consider. Obviously, the first is protect your IT investment and equipment, whatever you're going to be transferring and moving, be it routers, servers, larger equipment, any number of different pieces of gear that may be involved with your business at a location, either in your own facility or in another facility that you want to move to a different co-location facility. These are things you need to consider. And you need to consider, what is the downtime effect on your business? What is the minimum downtime that you can afford in making your move? These are both realities. There's ways to work around downtime, very expensive. I'll go through those in a little bit. But you need to understand the impact of a migration on your business, and you need to make sure that in this move, you've done everything to protect your equipment so that your migration will succeed. We've kind of broken it down into a process guide that we utilize here at vXchnge with the migrations, and we're working in one right now this morning. I just finished a meeting earlier with it, meeting with the various departments and contractors involved in the move. The first thing you really need to consider is the conception of the idea of what you're going to do and how your migration is going to work. What is the purpose of it? What is the gain? Because you have to sell that to both your executive team for the cost and your customers for the impact and exposure being worthwhile. They have to know that there's something coming on the other side that's going to make this a better service for them, more reliable, more productive, expansion opportunities, et cetera, whatever it might be. But failure to cover these three issues that you have here with your executive team or with your customers can lead to problems down the line in your execution of your migration plan, which you'll see sometimes results in delays. We'll go into those a little bit more. But once you've discussed it and you have your company, your executive team realizes, or you're the executive team, you realize here's the benefits, it's obvious, I want to make this move, what do I need to start doing? You need to first start determining what your requirements will be to make this migration. And I highly urge you at this point in time is to gauge the location where you're planning on going, whatever that co-location may be. And if it's our location, vXchnge, great. And this is where you need to engage us and start talking about your ideas and your plans of how you're going to do the migration. You also want to meet with all the various vendors that you're going to need to be supporting this move. If you're going to have somebody that's going to be coming in, deinstalling, packing your equipment, moving it, you'll need to start looking for those type of vendors. If you're going to have special installers at the other end, or if you're going to have specific equipment or software support vendors during the migration, now is when you start the conversations with them to collect the information that they need or that you will need. Sometimes you may have a piece of equipment that is under warranty. The equipment manufacturer may have a requirement that says only their certified technicians can deinstall and reinstall this piece of equipment to maintain your warranty. That's important information for you to know so that you don't unintentionally void a warranty on a very expensive piece of equipment and you can complete your move. I know some of these things seem like they're very fundamental, but you'll be surprised how many times people don't consider these things until into the tail end of their migration plan, which means it becomes a real rush environment and a firestorm trying to get everything done and in place. So once you've done that and you've met with everybody, you have the details assimilated what it's going to take. Now you can create what your plan is going to be, your migration plan, your migration budget. This is the key point, because analyzing the cost to migrate your equipment is going to be fundamental in your executive support and in your customer agreement. And it's a very important step to have an accurate budget put together that considers all of the elements. For example, if you do have to pay a special technician to come in and stand by, if you have to have a piece of emergency equipment on standby hot mode in case yours fails, these costs need to be included and not an afterthought during the migration itself. Now that you've got your budget put together, again, I urge you to review it with your approval team, your executive team, whoever that might be. Make sure that they're still on board with it. Now they're behind it, supporting it, and everyone knows about what your plan is, and you move into the next step, which is formalizing your plan. Here again is where, if you've been working with a good co-location provider or a data center, they're going to have a systems architect for you. They're going to have a systems engineer, or one or the other, and they're going to help you work with your migration based on their experience and based on their knowledge of the site you're moving to. What you need to do, help you develop a process and timeline, and one that can be realistic for you to advise to your customers. And at that time, you'll also be working with your customers to get input from them on what their requirements are. How much downtime can they take, or can they not take any at all? Are you going to have to supply them with some sort of alternate service during the migration? And then your vendor support. Now you're confirming and locking in those relationships with the vendors, and you start formalizing the contracts with them to make the moves. And last is to execute your plan. And when you say execute the plan, one of the things I have to urge you now and from the rest of the plan is always plan for the unexpected. Support, parts, systems, alternate networks, all are areas that you have to ask yourself, if something happens or fails, do I have the time to repair or recover during this migration window? And if not, how can I compensate for that? And there's many ways we'll talk about a little bit later that you can do that. Also make sure you're including members from your different organizations within your company. Your IT, also your equipment vendors, network providers, everybody needs to be on standby and alert of the migration that you're getting ready to conduct. Having them on standby and alert means that you'll reduce any confusion and delays if an event occurs and you need their support during the migration. So now that we've got the plan and we've got everything worked out and we've got a good idea of what we want to do, we have some basic questions we need to basically deal with. How much downtime can you afford? What is the potential for my equipment to be damaged during this migration? For example, if you have older servers, servers are really not mobile units. They're meant to be taken out of the box and installed, and they usually serve their life and then are replaced on site. Rarely are they moved. But if you have some of the older servers with a fixed hard drive, there's steps you have to take before you move that server to make sure that the hard drive is secured so that it won't damage itself in the transition. These are things you need to make sure that whichever moving company you use is aware of and knows how to do those things and is certified to make those repairs for you. This is the last point and stop where you make your go, no go as far as what you're going to do to make this worthwhile. And now you're looking at co-location. If you have your own data center and you're trying to move into a new one, so you have more expansion opportunities, better access to other carriers, other service providers that may be in this co-location facility that it's expensive for you to have to come into your data center. Now is the time that you basically can add those in, add those costs in, create a nice package to present to the final team, and look at getting approval on making your migration a success. And obviously, you're going to be able to prove that your service is going to be better at the new location. You're going to have expanded capacity. You're going to have more opportunities. You're going to have access to more service providers. Your business can grow without being restricted by your own limitations at your facility, or maybe in another facility that you're in today that can't provide you those things. It's one of the ideas that we at vXchnge always look at, is making sure that we have the full complement of space, power, as well as other carriers, other service providers. We're carrier neutral in our facilities, so we make sure you have the choice of the services you want. These are key things that give you the ability and the flexibility to manage your business efficiently and economically. So we've got everything out of the way. We've got everybody planned. We've got green thumbs up from everybody to do the data center location. So now we have to figure out how we're going to do this transition. If you want to look at it, there's two ways to consider the cost of a migration. It's either cost of dollars or it's cost of time. If you can't afford the downtime, you can set up parallel systems or swing gear to where that you can basically transfer off all of your business into a temporary installation, have your business operate in that installation until you make the move to your new location, and then transfer it from the swing gear to the new location. And this is the best way as far as minimizing with almost zero downtime to make your transition, but it also is the most expensive. If you are looking to kind of somewhere in between, you can look at setting up parallel gill, which means you make a hard cut over to parallel and you make the hard cut back over. You have minimal downtime, but you don't have as much cost. Obviously, the least expensive is being able to power down your equipment at your existing location, pack it up, transfer it to the new location, reinstall it, test it, bring it back online. Now, your cost is minimal as far as your transition from one point to the next point, but your cost and downtime is extensive. This can be, depending on how far away your data center is, it can be a full 24-hour day, or it can be days that it may take to travel from one location to another with your gear to get it reinstalled at the new location. These are the decision considerations you make. This is where your customers are going to come in to support what they can think they can afford and work with you on this as well. So it's a good cooperative effort between you and your customers so that you make this transition with your customers involved, your customers behind you, and you maintain your business and your relationship with your business as you make this migration without causing a negative impact to it. So again, your considerations that you're going to be looking at prior to the night that you make the move or the day you make a move. You're going to confirm again, does the provider really have everything that you need? Just one last sanity check to go in and confirm. And I recommend that you go to. I'm a firm believer that you can't expect what you don't inspect. So when a potential customer tells you, or your potential business that you're going to be moving to in a co-location or data center tells you that, yeah, we're carrier neutral, we've got multiple carriers in the location, ask them for contacts and information on that carrier network. If they have managed service providers, again, ask them for those contacts and call and talk to those providers to make sure that they are there, that they do have a good relationship with this co-location provider, and that they would support you moving in there as well. Inspect the space and look at the data center, the co-location facility, to make sure that you can see there is opportunities for you to grow if you need it, that there is room within power to provide your growth, within network and other considerations. But also look at the data center to make sure what your availability and redundancy needs are. Can they provide that for you? There's a lot of different co-location facilities out there, and there's a lot of different facilities that use a lot of numbers and 2+, M+, different factors that are going to tell you what that data center is capable of doing as far as maintaining. And one of the things you're going to hear a lot of times, the data centers are going to use is saying, well, I have 7 nines availability. But I urge you to ask and talk to your customer, talk to that vendor and ask them, when was their last outage and how did they handle it? When was their last event? Because if they went for a full year and never had any test or exposure to that center to cause it to be tested on the backup, then their percent availability is just coincidence. It was never proven. We can tell you that at our data centers, we do a lot of testing to make sure that they're available, including one each year. It's called an IST. It's an integrated systems test where we take the entire system and we turn off the incoming utility power, and we manage and watch everything that operates as supposed to. Did the batteries take the load? Did the UPSs come online with their battery? Does the ATS monitor and make the transfer to the GEN? GEN picks up the load, and the site maintains its operation without any impact to the customer for a period of time. These are things you want to validate. Don't just take numbers from a company. Make sure you validate those numbers. Make sure that they have those in place, that their teams are effective, that they can show you how they maintain it, that they can prove to you that it's been certified and inspected. All of those things they should have available, and a good quality data center will provide you that information very quickly and with no problem. And then last is consideration. Do you have special compliance needs that you'll need to make? Make sure that whatever your certifications are, HIPAA, PCI, SOC, any of the ISOs that you may be qualified for, make sure that your location you're moving to is also certified in those areas, has the audit capabilities, and can provide you with that audit information or audit services if required on your installation once you get there. This is a very critical point if you're serving any of the financial or medical industries, that you have that compliance, as you're probably aware, at the new location. And then last, what are your post-migration expectations? Once it's done, are they going to leave and not talk to you anymore, but are they going to help you with the final getting established in it, making sure that you have everything you need at that location, that you're familiar with it? One of the things that we have is we have an onboarding process for every new customer that comes in to make sure that they are very familiar with the site they moved into. They understand all of the different tools. They understand all of the different features we have, all the different support functions we have for them there. And we even include them in what we call a little welcome wagon package, which shows them traveling information from local, from mass transit, traveling opportunities to get to this facility, travel to the airport, hotels, restaurants that are nearby that we would recommend for them if they need any such services. Just anything we can to help them, make them feel at home within that facility and comfortable to do business in our facility. You should expect that from anybody that you choose. You should also be looking at the commercial flexibility that your company is going, that your selection is going to have. There's no more field of dreams. If you build it, they might not come. You've seen a lot of the movies, we've seen a lot of the stories, and we used to operate under what was called the Moore theory back in 1990s and to early 2000. The more you built, the more would come, and that's not really the case today. Infrastructure idle on any company is expensive and costly, but you need to make sure that you have enough capacity to support your customer base and that they have enough capacity to grow with your growth expectations. You need to make sure that their infrastructure that is existing at the facility you're going to is scalable, that they can support your scalability. We have customers that have moved in 10 years ago that demanded a certain level of power, but in today's equipment, they don't need the same amount of power in the fashion and distribution it used to be, and they're consolidating and they're reducing. We support that completely with all of our customers, helping them make those. In fact, we'll even help make recommendations of how they can optimize their installation and optimize their expense, because we feel it's important that it's a team relationship. We're working with our clients to keep them doing the best business they can at the best cost they can and not making decisions that may affect either one. But before you make your migration, make sure you set up those commercial terms of what can be expected, what latitude you have, and what support you will have, both in aligning with your new provider and provider services they can provide to you going forward. One of the things that Evan alluded to was our award-winning Insight program that gives you very direct control to come in and look at your installation, to manage your installation, to manage your billing, access control, a whole plethora of services that are in this system that allow you to remotely monitor what's happening within our facilities. And a top co-location or data center should be willing to have those facilities and tools and services for you and make your management much more efficient. So we've gone through a lot of the functions of your migration plans. Your plan is in place. You've identified a project manager and migration team roles and covered that with everybody. They've determined budget and success criteria. They've established a project timeline and a critical path and milestones. You reach a point, sometimes in the airline industry, it's a point of no return, which is when you've reached a certain speed at the end of the runway that you either take off or you have to pass it. You have no choice of stopping, and you're taking off. You have the same thing in one of these programs. Similar to this is what we call a go, no-go point decision, where you have aligned everything and you have everything confirmed and you're comfortable with it, then you give it the nod to go and your plan goes into place. But I urge you to be very critical at that step, because if you have anything that you're guessing about or you're waiting on information for, you're taking a risk if you push the go and you haven't confirmed those ideas have been finalized. So that's why your timeline and critical path milestones have to be monitored. We recommend, when we do one and support our customers, that about 3 weeks ahead of the migration, we start doing daily meetings with them, just checking to make sure everything is in place, identifying those things that need to be completed, that they're completed to the timeline or they get escalated, because you can't wait for things to bunch up at the end. If you do, that's when problems are going to start invading your migration plan. Confusion is going to set in, and it's not going to be the smooth migration that you'd started out planning for. Very important steps to follow. Following this plan, once you have it in place, is key. We couldn't urge and emphasize it any more emphatically, because it is the success plan for your migration. And if you've put the time in to identify all of the elements, understand all of the risks, compensate those risks effectively, then your migration plan can go smoothly and be successful. So kind of following up on this, what we've talked about a little bit, strongly urge you to engage. Don't feel like the migration plan is yours alone and yours to have to follow by yourself. Work with your data center provider. Let them help you, because they've got knowledge of other companies that tried to move in. They have seen things from different mistakes. Folks, I've seen migrations get stopped in their tracks because a power cord that was required for a specific piece of equipment was not packed at the from location and not available at the to location. And it took 24 hours to get another cord in there to get that machine working. I've seen steps where the migration company that's going to do the packing did not properly manage the equipment, and in one case, in a location that I happened to be at and monitoring, and they loaded servers on a cart, and they decided they were going to push those servers out to the storage room or to the freight room, and they would repack them in the boxes there, as it would be easier and not have to do that on the data center floor. On the way out, as they were going through one of the thresholds, one of the servers tumbled off the cart, caused about 3 or 4 to fall with it, and they ended up having 3 servers that were damaged beyond service. And the night of the move, they've been disconnected. Now they're supposed to be at the next location, and it took them a couple of days to get the servers replaced online on the other end. Most of the times, it's simple mistakes that are really going to cause you the unexpected events. So I urge you to look at those details and have people on your teams and leads to follow on those details to make sure that the company that's doing the migration for you is going to deinstall your equipment. Make sure that they're certified. Ask for their references and experiences. Make sure they're insured and bonded. Ask them about the qualifications of the team that will be at the site. If there's equipment that needs certification to handle, do they possess those certifications? These are things that are going to help you from finding out that you've unintentionally done something that now has voided a warranty or voided your service agreement. Another catch where I've seen a lot of areas where mistakes are made is that you power down the equipment at the old location and you bring it to the new location and you process it turning up. It won't come up. Why? Because your upgrades and your license is out of date. The company that's supporting that gear will not let you power up until you download and upgrade all the upgrades and reestablish your license to operate on equipment. So one of the tricks that we found, and one of the things that we do not really trick, it's one of our requirements is that before the migration, we go to the location where we're working with or urge that customer is going to do it to power down all their equipment and then bring it all back up online right there where it is in the rack, and then make sure that it has all the updated certifications, updates, licensing, and it will come back online. Because if you're at the 11th hour on a weekend and you're trying to get all of these upgrades, it could take hours to get it done, or even wait till the following week to work week to get somebody to renew the license on it to get reestablished. All the things you're trying to work with late at night. The same thing comes with certain equipment. Take a look at your equipment and ask yourself, how quickly, if this equipment fails, how quickly can I get a replacement? Work with your vendor on that. Ask them, if I call you because my equipment fails, how quickly can you have one out and installed? Will it fall within your window of your timeline for if you're down? If you're doing the hard cut, or you're shutting it off at 1 and going offline and bringing it up and installing it again. You start that installation, you've got a commitment to your customers to be back online. So you need to consider if it's going to take longer than your time allows, then you need to make arrangements to either have them have a standby ready, have a standby at your site, have a technician be in standby at the new location in case there is a problem, if it's that critical. It's worth the expense to have that. We've even seen where we've actually taken specific gear, such as maybe a UCS server, that we actually have it operating in what we call a warm status. It's been plugged in, powered up on a temporary rack, and it's ready so that if something happens, we can pull it and replug it in and use it and get it online. It's all in assessing what the impact is, the time of recovery, and how much you can afford determines then what you drive back to make sure those issues are taken care of. I would just urge you, as one who's made these mistakes several times, don't make assumptions. Prove every point. Validate everyone that says they can. Check them out. Look at references. Inspect their operation. Inspect their teams. And then make sure that your expectations are realistic. If you have unrealistic expectations, it's going to be difficult to meet those when it comes time to make the move, and that's going to run into downtime. You need to plan for and expect what's going to happen if something fails. Who are you going to need to support it? Where's your second team that's going to back up the restoration to get you back online? Think about these things and have a plan, and then you can execute that plan when these things occur. You're going to give the executive teams and the customers those areas that they should be aware of that are possible risk out of this thing, but then you're going to tell them, here's what we have in place to mitigate that risk if it occurs. It's going to go a long way to build the confidence in you and your team to get your migration done as quickly as you can and as successful as you desire. I hope this helps. Covered a lot of information. A lot of information is vast with details of things that you have to do depending on the complexity of your migration. But I wish you best in your migration. I hope in some way this has helped you in understanding and considering the points you need to take and make your migration success. And I'd like to open now to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ross. Actually, I have a question myself, and maybe you can answer this. Can you tell us what the top reasons for a company moving to the data center would be?
So what would be a couple of reasons why a company would move from a data center?
Would move their data center.
Okay. So let's just take that you're in another data center. This isn't your own, and you may find that data center has reached capacity on power. The building they're in or the resources that they have, they may not be able to offer you additional power to expand your equipment that you need. You have no way to grow. So you're either going to stay contained in that data center and possibly try and think about doing business, expanding into another data center and linking them two together, which is expensive, troublesome, can be complex at times, or you think it's better that I just move from this one that has got me boxed in and move to a data center that can provide you with both the expansion in power, space, network, and carrier services as well. You want to look for the data center that's going to be able to have that vision to grow with you when you're making a move. If it's your own data center that you're managing, you may have found, and fortunately, unfortunately, whichever side of the business you're on, with the COVID-19 and everything else is going on, a lot of people are looking at the complexity of managing their own data center when we're in this pandemic status, and are learning and thinking that it may be better to have someone who has more depth and staff and knowledge to support my needs, that fee really justifies it, because now where I'm faced when I am having trouble managing my network and managing my center, getting people to come in with all of the restrictions and requirements, that I go to a company that can manage through all of those. Through this entire pandemic, vXchnge, we've kept all of our centers open. We never closed the center. They've all operated, and we've all operated without impact to the business because we took the right steps. We're certified with all of the different government and local agencies as essential business, and we're able to transport our people back and forth to the sites as needed as essential businesses without violating any of the restrictions or governances. These are things that we manage at a larger data center that is a good data center. It's going to be able to manage and carry you through. It's not just the normal day-to-day business, but when you have emergencies, can they maintain your business and what you're looking for? These would be two compelling areas where someone really should take a look at and question what is the best option for my company.
Great, and I would assume that these companies that had to shut down, or buildings that shut down during the COVID, there might be some security and uptime issues that might be involved having their data centers on site, correct?
It could have very well been an exposure issue of security, or being able to meet the commitments of a customer to monitor or protect. We've seen a lot of different companies that have had a number of problems. We've seen some buildings in some areas that were cited for being contaminated and shut down, and it wasn't just to be desanitized and cleaned and reopened, but a couple of them were actually forced to remain closed for 14 days with nobody accessing the building.
Wow.
So while you may have remote access to it, there's physical access that needs to be done to make sure that everything is secure, that systems are functioning, that all of your support elements are operating as they should. And that's why you really need to look at the long-term protection of your business and what puts you in the best position to succeed through these type of events.
Wonderful. Now, there are a couple questions that came in. One of the questions is, isn't everyone going to cloud providers?
And Sue and
a lot of companies,
Ross.
organizations going to cloud providers.
And this is Evan. I can step in here, and Ross, if you have if you have anything that you want to add, feel free to jump in. But I think it's a great question because it's something that many companies are considering, especially as they're moving workloads from one location to the other. And the question, and the discussions that we have with the firms that are going through this type of analysis is just understanding what first off, as they look at the cloud providers, which cloud providers are they discussing, whether that be AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, or they're building out a private cloud, because ultimately it resides in a data center somewhere, right? Whether that be if it's an Amazon Web Services platform that's likely taking place in a Amazon data center. The questions that we always go back and forth on, instead of just saying, hey, this one's better or worse, and there's a lot of literature that talks about which applications fit best in a private cloud owned and operated by a company, or a public cloud owned and operated by the big cloud providers. Is what are they hoping to accomplish by with the move, right? Is it are they looking at costs? Are they looking at greater flexibility? Are they looking at shifting to an OpEx model, or is there something else? And then understanding what the what the client is, or the end user is trying to accomplish. That's where we may be able to say, all right, this, from our experience and, working with some of our other, service partners, who help guide, folks along this journey, is saying, we might want to, based on this particular workload, this particular application, we might get best performance, better security, better uptime in a data center, for something like, email services, et cetera. Yes, we want to host that in, an Office 365, scenario. So it's a very tailored, kind of, very tailored, question set and conversation, that we're always happy to, to engage with, because it is very much, very much like this, the conversation that Ross just took us through. It's very tailored. There's a lot of things to consider, because as data center operators, we see different companies in a different, I call it, maturity point from a cloud perspective, where, some are not adopting the Amazons, Azures, or Google because of regulatory compliance, or their applications aren't written. Others, they made the big shift because of the cost reason. The costs weren't recognized. So now there's a repatriation back. So it's, it's a very, kind of a deep conversation, but one that we're, that we have on a day-to-day basis, and we're always happy to engage and just give as unbiased a, perspective as possible. Because our goal is just that when we, we have, when we work with our clients, is to enable their success in the long run, not just, short run. And, many times, it is a hybrid approach, which goes into the carrier neutrality element that Ross, touched on, where it's, I need access to those clouds because of, the interoperability of the, of a hybrid IT stack.
Wonderful. We do have another question that came in, and they said, what is the best way for us to evaluate the strength of a data center?
I'm sorry, to repeat the question.
What is the best way for us to evaluate the strength of a data center? Or to strengthen a data center evaluation, I guess, is what they were trying to say.
Yeah. So it's a great question, and it's what I was referring to a while ago, in that you really need to, you can't expect what you don't inspect. And you need to go in and establish a good relationship. Ask them to see, you want evidence of their maintenance activity to support the data centers. You want to see their maintenance records. You want to see when was the last time that the batteries were tested and maintained. When was the generator tested, and how was it tested? Was it just fired up and let run for a little while, or did they actually do a full load test on the generator? You may need the support if you don't have the background in the infrastructure of a data center, but there are companies out there that can help you with that. At our company, we make all of that information open and available to any customer. Our maintenance, you're notified of every maintenance that takes place. We tell you the schedule of it. We tell you the purpose for it, when it's done, how it's done. You also want to look at the certifications, demand to see their certificates. When did they complete their last audit? And what was the results of that audit when you're looking at the question? And then ask them the hard questions. When did you have the last outage? Or what was the last major event that impacted your customers? And how did you handle that? Because anybody that tells you, well, we've never had an event occur, you're dealing with an unknown. Mm-hmm. You need to know what they're able to do. Yeah. You look at somebody, in my background in the military, when you were going to remote somebody, if you looked at somebody with a perfect jacket or package, then you had an unknown. You didn't know how they would handle the adversity when it occurred. Do they have a plan? Do they have a team trained? We go through a lot of training at vXchnge to make sure that we realize that even though we have all of the automation, the monitoring and the management of the systems, there are times that systems fail. And what do you do when those systems fail? We do a lot of effort to consider the what if. We have plans for that. If that transfer gear locks and doesn't work, what do you do? How do you manually force the transition to the generators? Every technician at our site is trained how to do that. You can't stand and wait for a generator tech to come in and move that generator online because your ATS has failed. So what impacts our customers? There's going to be impact. How did they handle it? Were they straight up about it? Did they resolve it? Do they put processes in place to make sure it didn't happen again? These are the kind of questions you need to ask. Not only just how does the data center look and what is the lobby like, and but those things are important, that it should look well, present well, but your key is in the meat of that data center, and that's the background infrastructure of what you're buying into. Do they have the space to support it, what you want to do in your growth? Do they have opportunities to expand power? Do they have room to add additional generators for the e-support power that's required? Look at those
Wonderful.
things, ask the hard questions.
Wonderful. We do have, it looks like one more question, and then I have a question after that. Where are vXchnge's locations?
Ross, I can jump in and just talk through that, because I made reference to the markets that we're in at the start. Just working our way West Coast to East Coast. It's focused on kind of I'll call them the underserved data center markets: Portland, Oregon; Santa Clara, California; Minneapolis; St. Paul, Minnesota; St. Louis, Missouri; Austin, Texas; Nashville, Tennessee; Raleigh, North Carolina; Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania; Secaucus, New Jersey; Westchester, and Manhattan.
Great. Okay, and I'm just going to leave off here with one last question of my own: is how do I connect with vXchnge, or how do I connect with to get internet connectivity? Who do I contact? So if you can move to the next slide. It's like my button is not working. Ross, could you move to the next slide? Thank you. If you have any questions, or you would like additional information on vXchnge and you need to get connectivity or to a data center, or if you need telecom connectivity such as internet, voice, any type of data solution, you can contact us on the left side of the screen. There's our contact information, amcomsolutions.com, and then we will work with vXchnge or any of the carriers to get you connected. And I would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar, and stay safe and have a great week. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Ross and Evan, for your great presentation.
You're welcome, Susan. Thank you.